Hello, everyone. I'm Stephanie Boozer with CUGC HQ, and I am pleased to welcome you to today's Connect webinar with Nutanix. I'm going to be talking about updates on the Nutanix and Citrix strategic partnership and how that affects the public sector. So definitely excited to hear about those updates. But before we dive in, some of you may or may not know CUGC moved to a new platform, and we just need you to confirm your account on the new site. It's pretty quick and painless, but we weren't able to migrate all of our information over between the platforms. So we did create accounts for you. If you already have an account, all you have to do is go to the new site, which is the same address, and just put in your existing CUGC email address and follow the profile prompts, and you'll be on your way. And you can always email hq@mycugc.org if you have any problems or questions. We're happy to help. Also, just be on the lookout at our current event calendar. We've got the next Excel event is in New York City. We're so excited to be back in person for our Excels. We are going to be at Yankee Stadium. It's going to be so much fun. I think it's going to be a great day. We've got lots of great content, and Nutanix will be there. So if you want to catch up with them in person, they'll definitely be there. All right, just a couple of housekeeping details for you. We are recording today's session, so be on the lookout tomorrow for an email from GoToWebinar. It's going to give you a link to that recording so you can revisit this session. Also, we'd love to take your questions today as you have them, so put them in the chat. We'll probably take some during the presentation and some afterwards, just kind of depends on what you're asking. But type those in at any time. We'll keep an eye on those and make sure they get answered for you. All right, so let me introduce our presenters. We have Sherry Walshak. She is the Senior Global Public Sector Solutions Marketing Manager at Nutanix. It's quite a title, Sherry.
Sure is.
Get paid by the syllables.
And we also have Dwayne Lessner. He's the Principal Technical Marketing Engineer. Hello, Dwayne.
Hey, everybody.
And keeping an eye on your questions is Chris Jeucken. He is a CTA, and he's also part of the Dutch CUGC. Thanks for being with us today, Chris.
Problem.
And then before I hand things over to Dwayne for the screen, I just want to point out that Nutanix is not only a global sponsor of CUGC, but they are also a sponsor of our Women in Tech program, which is an amazing one-to-one mentorship program. We have a lot of women that go through it and work on their technical and professional development goals. And so we just thank Nutanix for being part of that and making it possible. All right, Dwayne, I'm going to send you the screen right now.
Sounds good.
You can get us going.
All right.
That's super. So I'll jump in, Stephanie. So it's just great to be here, everyone. It's so wonderful to meet this group. This is new for me. I understand your mission is to connect and share best practices, problem solve together, and stay on top of technology trends and innovation. So no small task there, right? But Nutanix is so happy to be here, and we have some folks on the line to help answer questions as we go along. So feel free, as Stephanie said, to put them in the chat. So this is our agenda for today. You know, our goal is to update you on Nutanix. I'm not sure how familiar you are with Nutanix, but I've got some updates for you. We'll focus on our strategic partnership with Citrix and how together we can help you simplify, secure, and improve the user experience of today's workforce. We'll then pivot, and Dwayne Lessner, my partner in crime, will go through a technical deep dive on some updates I think you'll find really interesting. And then we're including a demo, and then we'll finally cover some Q&A at the very end. But do feel free to jump in if you have a question. We can answer those along the way. Right, Dwayne?
Sounds good. Yep, you bet.
Okie doke, next slide. So, okay, so for those of you who are not familiar with Nutanix, we've been in existence for over 10 years. By the way, we've had a partnership with Citrix all those 10 years. One of the first workloads that we supported was EUC VDI. So, but for those of you who are not familiar, I'll start, I guess, at the very top that, we provide one software platform for hybrid multi-cloud. So we started off, one of our founders came from Google, and we disrupted the IT market back in the day by developing, HCI, and it really disrupted the market because it natively converged servers, storage, virtualization, networking, and it really made the opportunity available to public sector customers and other customers to redesign how they, how they looked at their data centers. And so it modernized data centers. It effectively turned them into a private cloud. And our software is also available to be in the public cloud. So we have one software platform that can modernize data centers, be on-prem, and extend into public cloud. So what that means is we can run application, any scale, any location, on-prem and in the cloud. And we have some other features about our software that we'll get to in a moment. We have almost 22,000 customers around the world, including federal government, state and local government, education, all over the world. And so we're in every military service branch, civilian agencies, cities, local counties, provincial governments, you name it, we're there. What's really cool, I think, about one of our bragging rights is our Net Promoter Score. The IT industry tends to waver between 56, and 60. And Nutanix consistently for the past 6 years has scored 90 and above. So this is an independent research firm asking customers, how do you rank your vendor community in IT? And Nutanix has a world-class status when it comes to Net Promoter Score, which really means it's peace of mind, it's customer satisfaction, they're happy with our software. And then lastly, being one decade old, we are a Gartner Magic Quadrant leader for HCI as of 2021. IDC did some analysis, and we can prove that we offer 62% lower TCO over 5 years. And when it comes to the federal government, DISA is the testing and vetting arm for IT for DoD, and they put out a Department of Defense Information Network approved products list, and Nutanix is the only HCI provider on that list. And of course, HCI is the heart of the Nutanix Cloud Platform. So that's a bit of a snapshot about us. And then we'll move forward. From our beginning, we've always been about customer choice and the freedom to choose. So we support every major hypervisor you can see. You can choose your platform of choice, cloud of choice, it doesn't matter. Our software operates in all of these. We're currently in AWS, we'll be GA in Azure later this year. Next slide. So the premise is that the world is moving to hybrid cloud, being any combination of on-prem, private cloud and public cloud. And we convened a study recently that was just published earlier this spring about, well, who's deploying multi-cloud? How is that going? And at the bottom, you can see the URL for the actual study, so you can download it for yourself. And by the way, these slides will be made available to you, so you can see this later if you so desire. With the pandemic, it is no surprise that education is the top segment deploying multi-cloud, right? For end user computing, be able to access all the learning applications for students who are now having to go to school from home. So 70% of respondents have adopted multi-cloud in education. Public sector globally is 39%, but what's interesting is a study further confirmed that number is expected to double over the next 3 years. So, the world is going to multi-cloud, hybrid in light of the pandemic, in light of trying to support people at home, in the office, no matter where they choose to work, no matter where they choose to teach or to learn, that we have to have the technology that's available for them. Next slide. So no surprise here too, the future of end user computing is also hybrid. They did a study and 45% of EUC workloads are already hybrid. We'll find some customers who are on-prem only due to lots of good reasons about data sensitivity and other mandates and regulations. There are some mandates about cloud first, cloud smart, getting everything into the cloud. And so we find some customers who are on the far right. But the trend, the industry trend is shifting to the center of hybrid EUC, a mix of on-prem and public cloud. So with Nutanix, we're all about advancing the cloud smart journey for public sector. So with our software, we can deliver applications and data that power your organization. And for public sector, not everything will be in the cloud. There'll be some that have on-prem, some will have a mixed environments. But I think fundamentally, IT leaders are looking for the agility, the flexibility, being able to locate workloads, data, apps, where it best suits the mission, either from whether the mission is lower costs, improving security, being able to set up an isolated instance to work with mission partners globally, whatever the scenario is, our software enables our public sector customers to advance their cloud smart journey, both in public cloud, advancing no matter where they are to public cloud, looking at data as a strategic asset. We have Nutanix databases that unify database management to simplify that. And of course, one of our big workloads that we've supported from our very beginning is end user computing and our partnership with Citrix. Next slide. So there's been lots of studies about the economics of the cloud and what value can you derive from a hybrid multi-cloud with Nutanix. And so here are some stats here that you can use for your business case for your respective organizations. You can manage with Prism, our unified management and operations. You can manage private and public clouds as one. You can build a multi-hybrid cloud in under 1 hour. You look at non-disruptive one-click upgrades. There is 27% faster application development. We have stats that show that you can save 50% on cloud spend with continuous optimization. And the biggest one is really about security. Our software, we work with the federal government from our very beginning, and we embedded security in our actual code that goes out. So our software comes pre-stigged and has automated baseline auditing. And it's simply, a better platform with security built in for any application. Okay, next slide. Well, let's shift gears and talk about our commitment to the public sector. Next slide, Dwayne. So we're all about enabling our customers to shape the future of government and education, whether it's modernizing and simplifying their on-prem data center to extend the public cloud, enabling a hybrid workforce. We have built-in security features, automation, auditing, and reporting, and being able to support new business models. One thing for education, I think it's so interesting, is that the age range for people going to college, that demographic, 18 to 22, is shrinking. And so education, for example, is looking at new programs targeting the non-traditional students. And so that requires new functionality, new support for IT for these people and programs. And so again, the bottom line is, I think IT is looking for a very agile infrastructure to support whatever comes, whether it's the pandemic, whether it's non-traditional students, whether it's new mandates, being able to pivot and support whatever comes down the pike. So let's talk about some examples. These are all end user computing examples. Here's one for the DoD. And we partnered with our federal system integrator, SCIC, on that one. And it was all about the agility to increasing the VDI environment for 500 additional desktops. And they found they had 90% more space efficiency, and it was only a 45-minute installation time compared to half a day with the old infrastructure. So we were able to support VDI for this customer. And again, one of those happy customers. Next slide. Here's a healthcare example, and the challenge here was that with the pandemic, about 75% of their workforce went to work remotely, and yet they needed to provide telehealth to their patients during COVID. And so they really couldn't support the new mission with their legacy infrastructure. So they chose the Nutanix Cloud Platform with Citrix, and they're able to decrease the login time from 171 seconds to 19 seconds. And this is big, especially for a medical setting where users need to move quickly from one application to another, from one task to another. Speed and simplicity is vital. Next slide, Dwayne. Here's a local government example, Fuji City in Japan. They found that they faced high operations and management costs. Again, they're looking to modernize their infrastructure, and they chose the Nutanix Cloud Platform with Citrix, and they were dramatically able to reduce the number of servers and achieve flexible resources online. And they were able to integrate management of multiple resources that really reduced operational burden on their IT teams. We find that with all of our customers. The footprint goes down, the costs for power and cooling go down. They're able to pivot and spend less of a percentage of their budget on maintenance and operations and go to innovation, which affords tremendous opportunity for every organization. I'll stop there. Any questions from the team coming in? Then I'll continue. So let's pivot and talk about and Citrix partnership. Now, if you're thinking this is not new news, you may not be wrong. We've had this partnership with Citrix for over 10 years. But what is new in 2021 is that we signed a strategic partnership together. And so, Nutanix for Nutanix, Citrix is our preferred partner for EUC, and for Citrix, we're their preferred partner for HCI in hybrid multi-cloud, for all the reasons that I just went over. So what's great about that is that we can bring true on-demand elasticity and portability to Citrix solutions. We can extend to public cloud, and there's a lot of value with joint engineering, product roadmaps, joint support that benefits all of you. Next slide. So the expected outcomes here as hybrid multi-cloud, you can see enhanced security. Citrix can be inherently more secure than physical devices. A common practice is to disable local file access, for instance. This is very valuable to prevent data loss and unauthorized access to critical company data. You can work from anywhere, and then consolidated services. We can react faster by reducing friction and management overhead through consolidation of services. And the net benefit here is that you can set up a virtual desktop in under 6 minutes and deploy a virtual app under 2 minutes. Next slide. One thing I wanted to point out is an industry exclusive is our flexible per user license model. This is really huge. It's a real cost savings and time saver for our customers. So it really changes the consumption model to better meet your needs. So for example, scenario number 1, we have 500 users on a single 3-node cluster. Scenario number 2 are the same 500 users, but on a 6 because they really need a more support, more capacity for more intensive applications and workloads. And number 3, you can see adding 300 users later, growth and seamless DR when needed.
Or Microsoft releases a new patch and your CPU goes crazy.
There you go. There you go. So a lot of benefits in terms of this flexibility and agility. Again, something that our customers are finding they really need, in this market. Next slide.
My turn.
There you go. So Dwayne, over to you.
Hey everybody, thanks for staying engaged. And I guess I have like 20-25 minutes to dazzle you. I've been with Nutanix long enough now that when I sit in this chair that my shoulders get sore. So it's been a while. I think the genesis of coming to Nutanix was as a VDI person, but heaven forbid it was the other vendor at the time. But it was at a time where you needed a lot of extra pieces, and I definitely was on the other side looking in, wondering why we didn't go with Citrix. And we did have terminal services, but healthcare in Canada, I guess it's varied of choices, but things do remain the same since I guess almost 10 years from when I had started at Nutanix. This is the magical story when it comes to Nutanix being able to scale out. Even with the latest and greatest, fastest, hardware on the market, there's always a bottleneck somewhere, and it's your job as an administrator or user to try to figure out where that bottleneck is. But when you have localized resources, you can get really consistent performance. And when performance isn't consistent, that's usually when the CEO or some other person is like, what's up with this desktop? And even on the flip side too, you can actually have a desktop that's super slow. And if that's what people are used to, they're actually okay with it. But if they ever get a good taste, that's what the new bar will be set. So some of the technology driving that consistent performance, we do have localized storage controllers that allow us to localize all the reads. A big one that's still prevalent and useful today is shadow clones. So when you're using app layering or machine creation services in your environment, we're able to create a local read-only copy on each of our nodes that services all of the reads for that golden image. And so booting or rapid deployment of desktops can happen a lot faster without impacting the rest of your users. So regardless, and it also actually in some ways can prevent noisy neighbor syndrome with our shared storage model. So if one person's hitting the storage hard, at least it's not, the likelihood of it affecting everybody is minimized with the technology. And this just comes out of the box. There's nothing to configure. You just deploy. You don't even have to think about it. Lots of different integrations on the Citrix stack. This being a Citrix user group, you probably are well versed with it. I think the Citrix director for your administrators that might not have a storage background, so you can get all of the latest and greatest from Citrix Studio continues to be updated with multiple connecting options. So if you want to get connect to HV, as we move towards our cloud story with Azure support, you'll also see support for Prism Central being there as we introduce overlay networking on the Azure side. So nothing will, from a Citrix administration point of view, it's going to be pretty easy. The great old battle with PVS, you can definitely do it on Nutanix. It works great. I think there's oodles of reference architectures for on-prem and also with NC2, Nutanix Cloud Clusters, with both MCS and PVS that you can take a perusal. And if you want to use a Citrix control plane, that is ultimate easy button. So that's fully supported as well. You can get it connected through Prism. So just a lot of easy buttons to keep you up and going. On native support for HV, as mentioned, it's just a drop down that you can get going. So nothing really hard or concerned. I guess the hypervisor story is really hopefully somewhat irrelevant these days. Usually it's more of a business decision, I guess, where you go. I think ours is fairly strong in that regards for running on top of HV. You have Citrix with arguably the best desktop environment, and then we're able to provide a really easy to use infrastructure as a service to layer underneath. So the storage stats that I was mentioning before, you're able to get those multiple different deployment models. But if you're familiar with Prism, you definitely can still go there. I guess it's really how you want to manage your environment. I guess if you're more of a Citrix person or more of a Nutanix person, I guess, depending on what you want to do. Getting connected to Citrix Cloud, pretty easy. It's meant to be that way. And so you can connect Citrix Cloud whether you're on-prem or if you're deploying in AWS and soon to be Azure, you can connect your environment through that way as well. So we're not, regardless of deployment, we're really trying to keep operations the same, which I think is, the key of the puzzle. Deploying desktops, I guess we've been doing it for a while, but how can we maintain the workflow regardless of deployment, regardless if, you're bringing on a new agency, you're able to just, clickety click and get your work done regardless of where it needs to be. The march towards, heavy users for desktops, maybe you're using AutoCAD or some other, maybe you're just using Google Maps, whatever the use case is. We do support HV with GPU support. obviously, we do support it with ESXi as well. We do have GPU support for our cloud clusters. So if you're deploying inside of AWS, depending on the region, you will have the ability to grab GPU nodes as there as well. And I guess in that sense, I guess every Citrix Nutanix customer has the ability to deploy or get access to GPU when they need it. It can be kind of costly. So if you're not using it, you can, get rid of it. So kind of a great use case for projects that may come up that may not be long-lived. The age-old question around static desktops versus non-persistent, and I think hopefully the march is non-persistent just from management, but if you're an older shop, you definitely have a lot more reasons why you went static. But to help shoulder that burden, you do need some shared storage. Nutanix Files is a great place to start for storing your user data, whether it's user-based or departmental. There's the ability to we have a product called Data Lens, which allows to do ransomware protection and file auditing, which is a cloud-based service. So that's also easy to set up. You can also tier your data to object storage as well with Nutanix Files. It's integrated into Active Directory. And I think one of the most interesting parts, back in the day, I used to cover this product, and the distributed share or the home share is really interesting in that we can really reduce any performance problems by however many file server VMs that you deploy on your Nutanix cluster, whether it's on-prem or in AWS. We will evenly distribute those users, so it really reduces bottlenecks. If you have the space, you can scale up or scale out. So I guess it really makes it flexible. You can deploy it as a standalone cluster. Smaller customers will deploy files along with their virtual desktop. So a lot of different options. And here is just kind of a visualization of the shared directory on the right. So if you have, in this case, 9 users, they're all going to be on the same share, but their user directory will be spread out among the file server VMs, and we'll just forward the traffic. So when a customer hits a file server VM, we will just forward the traffic to the appropriate file server and this is all behind the scenes. There's nothing to manage here from a user perspective. So that can be quite handy. And then we have our basic share as well that'll just live on one file server VM. And we try to spread those out evenly as well. Nutanix on our own DR as a service. So we've had, it was formerly called Xi-Leap. Might be more familiar with that name, but it's our DR as a service now. And really it is using hybrid nodes. So there's really good cost point. It is, you pay per VM. There's the ability to do it on demand. You have a lockdown Prism Central that you can use. You can actually also deploy. There are reference architectures for deploying Citrix networking inside of our managed data centers as well. So this is, pretty easy to get up and going. I would say it's probably one of the most cost-effective DR solutions, just because we're managing the other side. I guess if I was going to mention a downfall, just that we don't have the same breadth of Azure or AWS as far as data centers. So if you have data sovereignty issues, then if it's close, then it's fine. But so that might be the deciding factor. But when you do have those issues, we have another solution with our Nutanix Cloud Clusters, which allows you to deploy anywhere that those bare metals are supported. So AWS, lots of different regions around the world. Benefit there is around native networking. So pretty much any AWS service you can use in conjunction with your with your Citrix environment, and then Azure is right around the corner. Public previews starting at the end of this month. And I think the big one that comes up there is the ability to spend towards your Mac agreement, and also that everything that Azure gives you, you also get running on Nutanix. One that's come up recently that's seems to be a big deal is just the Office 365 licensing. I don't, no one in their right mind would want to be a Microsoft licensing expert, but obviously we kind of need to know a bit about it, but there are distinct advantages of deploying in Azure. And so some other use cases that, just DR in general, the ability to burst. You can keep your Citrix, or if you're using the Citrix control plane, really easy to just create a cluster and add on to it. That's what we'll show for the demo. And then scale out the ability to add nodes. You can actually even, based on certain amount of RAM, certain amount of CPU usage, I can add a node onto my cloud clusters. Migration and test, AWS has a feature called Hibernate. So you can actually get a cluster all configured, deploy, work on it, and then at the end of the day or work week, I can shut everything down. That data goes to S3. Monday morning, I can resume my operations and I'm back again. Or if you're, depending on how you're doing that, you can just delete the cluster, then redeploy. So there's a lot of different cool options you can do there. We do have a lot of material for AWS already for Nutanix Cloud Clusters, also NC2. They're sitting on the Nutanix portal. You don't have to have a portal account to get ready. So with that, I think I'm actually going to go into the demo, and then we'll see this in action. I can't really see if there's any questions, but feel free to do so.
No questions at the moment.
All right. Well, hopefully this will spark some questions. So here, close this. All right. So in our world, we're just using Okta to secure our engineering side of our NC2 portal. It was originally called MCM for Multi-Cloud Manager, which is a good name because it's going to be the ability to manage multiple cloud deployments based off of the frame product, at least from the management or the control plane. And so if you go to mynutanix.com, you would be plumbed in. You'd have a Nutanix Cloud Clusters that you could get access to this menu. And so here we have some AWS clusters already deployed. One's hibernated. We're in the middle of creating Azure cluster. So first things first, though, you would go off and you have your organization, trusty old Acme. And then here you would add your cloud accounts, which could be multiple accounts, different cloud vendors all over time. So here, AWS, you add in your AWS ID. We run a cloud formation. You can hit, like, if you were to plumb this in yourself, you could actually look at the cloud formation. I think one security question that always comes up is, like, do you have access to my whole environment? Whatever we have access to, we can only delete what we create. I guess best practice would dictate putting this in a separate account, but from our experience, people want to deploy directly into their account. They have all of their security set up, and we can fit right into their business model, which tends to be pretty valuable. You can lock down the regions that you can deploy to if you don't want to wake up one morning and figure out that you've deployed to Tokyo or London. You can, I don't know if you heard that, my drink's here. Anyway, so yeah, once you have your account in, you're ready to deploy. A typical deployment on AWS takes about an hour. And so if you just hit create cluster, here we have our virtual desktop, which is really around that per user licensing. So in the scheme of things, if you already have per user licensing, Nutanix isn't really making any money of this. Of course, the cloud vendor is going to come and collect their coin. So I'll just give this a name, pick our cloud account, where we want to deploy to. We'll deploy to the east. And here, the bottom screens is really just for Nutanix use because it's on the engineering side. You wouldn't really see that information. Pick what we want to deploy with. Typically, this i3 Metal is kind of the gem for deploying into the cloud. We do have government regions as well, which I guess is important in terms of this audience. You can use an existing environment or create new. So if you want to create a new bubble, this is a pretty easy button. We'll deploy all of the NAT gateways. We'll create public and private routing routes for you as well. But I do have an existing environment where we can deploy to. We do only deploy to private subnets. And then we do lock down our storage controllers and our hypervisor with a security key. So just leave that there, hit next. Pick your AOS version. We do support both short-term and long-term support options. And then here, we do have built-in security natively with AWS. While you can go ahead and deploy micro segmentation, you don't have to. This will actually integrate with the AWS security groups. So typically here though, what we're looking for is just putting in our on-prem security. So if we already have a VPN connected, as soon as we deploy this, we can start like using our Nutanix replication, push the golden image, and then we're really just have to add this deploy cluster into our Citrix Studio, and away we go. This I should be. Well, they don't pay me for my typing skills, folks. They don't pay me for my typing skills. All right, now we're off to the races. We hit next. We get a nice little readout of what the cloud bill is going to cost us, and then we do a check as well to make sure we have enough virtual CPU quota in our AWS account. We hit create, and bada boom, bada bing. That's how easy it is to deploy a cluster in your environment to expand out your environment. If we take a look at my environment sitting in Phoenix, Arizona, and here we have our Prism Central. Loading. So this, just using one Prism Central here, we have our on-prem cluster. We have this VDI cluster sitting in AWS. I guess if we go back to here, we can see that this VDI cluster, it's just a one node, but this, say this 3-node cluster that's running, if I wanted to, you could easily, scale that up to however many nodes you want. You can adjust the security details as well. So you can do it from the menu, but this can also all be automated. This portal has an API, which could also be used. But I digress. I think just that was important. So if I go into my Citrix environment, so we're just working our way through Prism Central, do a filter, CBC. All right, so here we have our Citrix Studio, Launch Console. Close that down. I think maybe we can. Connect. All right. Whew, I normally don't manage this environment anymore. So here is our Citrix Studio. I'll let this load here. There we go. So here we already have a on-prem environment, but here we can just add another resource. So so I'll just create a new connection. It is just an HV cluster, even though it's sitting up in AWS, plumb in the VIP that we could get from the cloud menu. Cloud, next. So we already have the VPN already set up. So here's our cluster. Give it a name for the resources. Looks like I got 1 more minute left. So we have the connection to our cluster sitting in AWS. Now we can go and quickly deploy desktops. I already moved over a golden image with our replication before the meeting. So I'll just create a machine catalog. If there's any questions, you can bring them up as I kind of just wrap up. That's fine. We'll just do a non-persistent desktop. Next. Just pounding through the buttons, picking our storage container. We have a snapshot already created. We'll deploy some desktops. Like the guy that you hate, deploying to the default OU. And one last name. Oops, I guess it doesn't really matter. And that is pretty much it. We have desktops sitting up in the cloud. And yeah, so it doesn't, and it'll be a very similar experience with Azure. The only difference with Azure is that the Azure side does have a required Prism Central that will be needed. It will be using overlay networking, which means that this Citrix plugin will be talking to Prism Central versus the local cluster itself. That's really the only difference. So yeah, thanks for watching the demo. Let's go back here. I think that's all we have. If there's no questions.
Oh, I don't have any questions. Although your colleague did post some useful links in the chat.
I guess one thing regarding the Nutanix files is that you can, one thing that comes up is around having DR for that or moving files. There is a continuous file share. So if you want to use it on-prem and then also have it at your DR location, that is also available for Nutanix customers. And then the DR part of it, there is encryption now available for the actual encryption versus just using whatever the network's providing as well. But I would encourage just to contact your local Nutanix SC, and there's just a wealth of other information that we wouldn't be able to cover all in one session. So
we have one question from Carrie Jeffers. How might that differ if using the Citrix Cloud Service with Cloud Connectors?
Can you say it one more time, sorry?
How might that differ if using the Citrix Cloud Service with Cloud Connectors?
I guess you'd just be connecting your local cluster to the Citrix service itself. There's just there's a place in Prism Element for it. There are certain requirements around the agents, I do believe. I don't have them handy, but.
But I'm guessing what Carrie means is if you run your desktops on-prem, and you use Citrix Cloud, and those desktops run on Nutanix. So if you can then still use Prism to connect to Citrix Cloud. Guess Carrie's going for that. Do you care with Carrie in the question screen? Might wait a moment to.
I just see the chat. I don't actually have a questions box if there's something separate.
Well, I have a question box.
Oh.
So can you elaborate in the questions, because attendees can't unmute themselves and talk. Maybe Stephanie can unmute you. Okay, using Nutanix on-prem and want to use cloud for disaster recovery desktop services.
Yeah, I think in that case, right, you're just going to make sure that you have, well, if you're using static desktops, you can DR them, but the control plane will just be connected to both individual clusters, both on-prem and in the public cloud.
Okay.
Yes. There, when you deploy in AWS, we require access to the internet to talk to the NC2 portal. That traffic can be routed though through, like, going back through maybe your on-prem environment and then out. If you're controlling internet access, that's, I guess, you know, something that does come up in the public sector, just locking that down. There is the ability to use a proxy as well.
Okay. Well, I have no further questions right now. So.
Sounds good. Sherry, any last questions or thoughts before we drop off?
No, I just wanted to thank everyone for attending today. And I think, Stephanie, you'll be sharing the presentation. We're happy to take any questions offline also if you want to reach out to us. And thank you for your attention today.
All right. Thanks, everyone. I'm going to put another link in the chat to our CUGC YouTube channel, because I know that we've had some webinars in the past with Nutanix. All you have to do is go to that YouTube channel and you can search Nutanix and you can find those webinars. But I know Jarian Gibson did a little series about a year ago, and I know Nutanix Files was part of that, and some other stuff that might be relevant here. So definitely check that out. And absolutely, I will send a link tomorrow to this recording and to a way to get to a slide deck. And then finally, just I know some of you may have opted in for a chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card. So what I'm going to do is, as soon as I close out this webinar today, I'm going to pull the attendee report and we'll do a random drawing, and somebody will be a lucky winner. So be on the lookout for an email from me, or watch us on Twitter to find out who won. And with that, I think I'll just thank everyone for being here. Thanks so much, Sherry and Dwayne and Chris. Really appreciate you. And we also had some people behind the scenes answering some questions that I threw in the chat for you. So thanks everyone for being here today. It was great to have you.
Yeah, thanks everybody.
All right, well, enjoy the rest of your day or your evening, wherever you are, and we'll see you on another CUGC event or at a local meeting, or hopefully in New York in July. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.